From time to time, I love to share with you guys interviews of other podcasts where I've been able to share more of my story. On this week's episode, I was featured on Disrupt the Everyday podcast with Brine and Tonya Hamilton. They are a beautiful couple that are helping to navigate life while disrupting the status quo. On this episode, we discuss how gratitude and faith have helped to make resilience my superpower and overcome difficult times, including the loss of my sister. I also share how I found my voice and I'm using it to impact others through coaching, speaking, and as an author. Hope you enjoy. I'm Makini Smith. In 2009, while going through a divorce, I decided to jump straight into entrepreneurship. In 2012, I lost my sister and asked myself, what legacy do I want to leave behind? Since then, I've become a serial entrepreneur, helping other women publish their books, produce their podcasts, and reach their big goals to walk in their greatness. I realized the importance of sharing our stories of resilience and how it can be another's guide to walk in a manner worthy of their calling. We are blessed to be a blessing, so get ready to be blessed with an inspiring testimony. Hey, Legacy Leavers, thank you for joining us on the Welcome My Stilettos podcast, the top 1.5% most popular show in the world where we have conversations with amazing women that are letting us step into their shoes. I help women to own their voice so they can create impact, prosperity, and legacy. I get inspired when I see another woman succeeding, but I'm interested more in her backstory and the mindset that got her there. Today's guest is me. Let's jump right in.
So one of the questions we like to start off with here is asking you, who is Makini Smith?
That is a very, very loaded question. Interesting enough, I start my podcast by asking my guests the meaning of their names because their names have meaning. So I guess I'll start there.
Okay.
So Makini, it's Swahili for strength of character. And my parents, Jamaican background, my father had a love for, I'm going to say, African descent names. So most of his children have African descent names. But growing up, they told me that my name meant beautiful one. So I, as a little kid, I felt really excited about my name when people would say, oh, that's an interesting name. What does it mean? But I realized that as we get older, as adults, and we start to dig deeper into a lot of things, there's a lot of things that we learned growing up that were not true. And my name, like I said, growing up and realizing that it meant strength of character, it was at a time when I was digging more into personal development and getting more into the truth of who I am, what I want to be, digging into the truth of other people's stories. So Makini stands for strength of character. I am a mother of 3. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur. I'm a certified mindset coach for my mentor, Bob Proctor. And I am a 4-time author. And I have a 5-star rated podcast that I found out recently is in the top 2% of the most popular podcasts in the world, which kind of blew my mind. But I've had the blessing of interviewing, at this point, between the podcast and my Instagram, over 150 women, and getting them to share their stories and their truth and how our stories of resilience can actually inspire another person and give another person comfort to know that they're not alone. So majority of the things that I do within the brand are, helping other people to amplify their stories and use their stories as tools to build more impactful personal brands. And at the end of the day, everyone has resilience within us, but it's like a muscle that we need to strengthen. So the focus is on using our stories of resilience to help strengthen each other as a community.
Yeah, and I can totally appreciate that. And when I came across your name on Instagram, and started researching what you were all about in your brand, I can definitely appreciate that. And one of the reasons why I asked for you to come on the show is to talk, because it's so true what you said. We all have a story. it's all going to be different, but we all have something to bring to the table and to share it, right? And maybe not on as big a platform as you or others, but somebody can always benefit from it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that's why I'm really thankful that you're here with us today. So a question I have for you, I know your story is unique, but I know it can resonate with many. So can you take us back to around 16 years ago, maybe even a little longer, and walk us through your stilettos? So there's a little shout out to your brand. And just share with us how you got to where you are today.
Wow. So I'm trying to think back to 16 years ago. I'm like, I think that was just before I had my son. The time flies, honestly. I blinked and realized that I think it's been almost 12 years now that I've been a full-time entrepreneur. So it's like, where was I 16 years ago? I guess let's take it back to, I'm going to say 2012. We'll go from there to get to where I am presently. In 2012, I lost my sister, and we were almost 7 years apart. And she was not only my sister, but my best friend. She was a source of inspiration to me. She was someone that I looked up to, and someone that advocated for me before I realized I had my own voice. And I had gone through a divorce in 2009 from, I'm going to say, a toxic relationship. And my sister was my main source of support. Not only did she move in with me to help me with the 3 kids as a single mom, but she helped me, I'm going to say, develop a closer relationship with God and dig into, I guess, a place of service and not looking at myself as a victim, but more of like the victor. So when she passed away in 2012, suddenly I had to look at the legacy that I wanted to leave behind, how I wanted to be remembered, because I had people reaching out to me, letting me know how she made them feel, the positive things that she had done for them, how she had supported them when their family didn't, how she had supported them and showed up for them when they were starting their business or having a child or, going through a rough time, just by sending them motivational videos and quotes. And I slowly started to emulate some of her qualities, the things that others admired that I also admired. And I started to evolve into a different person. And it opened up the doorway for me to meet thought leaders and pastors and other people that could change the trajectory of my own path. And in doing so, when I was digging and doing my own healing, I grew up, I'm going to say, a deeper understanding of grief and feelings and resilience and, how we function as people and how our minds work. And that made me look at, wow, like everybody should know this information. Like, why are we, struggling and suffering when there's information out here to help us get through these things? And then I started to transition from, I was doing real estate full time at the time, and realized that my love for helping others to heal was way stronger than, what I was doing in real estate. And going through that journey of, I guess, when I decided to share my own story and write my own book, and then that's when I met Bob Proctor and his wife, Linda, and his daughter, Colleen. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with who Bob Proctor is, but he's one of the thought leaders featured in the documentary, The Secret. But that kind of blew my mind and opened me up to more of what is possible and how the present circumstances that I am in doesn't have to be what it is, and that we do have some power in controlling our future or rewriting our narrative or telling our own stories for ourselves and not allowing other people to do so. And I just started to walk in that. And as I started coaching and, sharing my journey, I was being requested to speak on different media platforms globally across Canada, the US, South Africa. It just blew my mind that, people wanted to hear my story. And the more that I opened up, the more that it opened up doors for other women that started to reach out to me. And they were in my DMs and my emails. And at the time, my phone number was on the internet. So they were calling, and everyone wanted to share how they connected to my story and how it felt like I was telling their story, and how my transparency had allowed them to no longer feel shame in what they were going through and that they weren't alone. And I just opened up to that. And I realized there are so many people out here that have stories that could be a blueprint for someone else, that can help someone else get through what they're going through, but they don't know how to share their story. So my brand became the platform to help others share their story. So as much as, my 4 books have allowed me to amplify my story, it's allowed me to help other women to get their stories out there, to document their journey, to publish their books. The podcast, I didn't expect it to grow to what it grew to. It was really just an extension of me sharing my story. And I was like, how can I help others share theirs? And I started the podcast because I didn't feel comfortable producing video content. Most people don't realize how shy and introverted I actually am. So I shy away from video. So I stepped into the conversations of the podcast and realized the strength in our stories. I realized the similarities in our stories. And no matter what a woman's background is or her experience or her traumas, how we could still connect to that story. And, it's just been such a beautiful journey. I can't even tell you, I feel like there are some days where I'm like, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I walking the right path? And then I get that confirmation, whether it be from a client or someone who's listened to the podcast, letting me know how it's changed or affected their lives. And I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. So I'm going to say that's how I got to where I am today.
No, that's great.
Yeah, it's just interesting too that in your, I guess, journey to really discover and magnify your own voice, that you were able to help so many others to do the same.
Yeah, I didn't believe that I had a voice before. And maybe because it was that, that shy, quiet girl in me. And I guess maybe old school Caribbean background, children are, supposed to be seen and not heard. And me never speaking up about, my feelings and allowing my sister to advocate for me, even with my own parents. My mom used to call her my lawyer because I couldn't speak up for myself. So when she passed, I was forced to speak up for myself and realized that I had a voice inside, but also realized there are so many women that feel silent or broken by the fact that they don't know how to use their voice, and showing them the strength in tapping into that voice.
Yeah. And your recent Instagram post from today, actually, it says, it stuck out to me. So I thought that I wanted to share it. When we connect with others, we're also encountering their trauma and past experiences. Handle people with care. Mm-hmm. And it's so true, right? And it goes back to everything you've just said. Like everybody has something that's gone on, right? We don't know, because now look, like we're running into you on this end of your life, right? Not 12 years ago. So if people don't share, we don't know what's gone on.
Right.
So thank you for, being open, and putting yourself out there to share those, stories that have happened in your life.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like at the end of the day, like you said earlier, not everyone has to, if they don't choose to, share it on huge, big platforms. But at the end of the day, whether you find the confidence to share your story with a family member or a loved one, like that domino effect of being vulnerable with someone, getting to know someone on a deeper level, getting to understand someone on a deeper level helps us, engage with other people and have stronger relationships and confidence to pursue our dreams and things even more. So, I don't know. I just feel very passionate about people's stories. And I feel like at the end of the day, every single one of us has a story. Some people may not feel like their story is big enough to share on a big platform, or that it's, extravagant enough to build a story around. But at the end of the day, your story is your story, and no one really knows the depth of your experiences or the things that you've gone through. But when you approach every single person, you are dealing with all of their past experiences, any trauma that they've had, anything that they have encountered. So dealing with people from a place of empathy, dealing with people from a place of love, rather than judgment or criticism. Like, you have no idea what you see, on the surface of someone when you look at someone. And most times, especially as women, we're very great at dressing up on the outside, doing the hair, the nails, the makeup, covering it all up, when inside we have these pieces that we're afraid to address or share, from whether it be discomfort or shame or the paradigm of, sweeping things under the rug and not dealing with things. But if you take the time to handle someone with care and approach them from a place of love and empathy, and let them know that they are seen, heard, and understood, you open up the doorway for so much more.
I was going to ask a question from mom to mom. How did you balance, the entrepreneur life, especially when the kids were younger? And how do you balance it now?
So I laugh at the term balance sometimes, because I mean, sometimes we can drop the ball in certain areas when we're focusing on one thing. But I found a formula that works for me. And I laugh when I tell people this. I'm like, it involves a lot of F words, but it's not the ones you think. So first and foremost, I put my faith at the front of everything. And then, I mean, when it comes to even scheduling, well, pre-COVID, making sure that I made that time to go to church on Sundays and Bible study on Wednesdays, and my time during the day for prayer, that was a priority. And then the other F would be family. So, things that I needed to do with the kids, whether it be, their activities for school or making dinner or, dentist appointments or what have you. And then the third one would be finances. So that's my business. So I scheduled my business around my schedule with the kids, especially as a full-time entrepreneur. So I made sure that I fit in what was important to me as a mom to be able to be there for them, especially as, I'm going to say, a single mom who is a full-time entrepreneur who could have, overly busy schedule, but I didn't want them to feel like they weren't important. So I would allow my clients to book in the spaces where I'm available. So my kids' things were, priority on the calendar. And then the other F would be, that's when you make time for friends and fun. So based, with what's left on the schedule. So priorities, you know what I mean? So that's how I was able to, quote unquote, balance a lot of the things I did in the beginning when they were small. I mean, when I first became a single mom, my son was 4 and he is now 15. So, the kids range in age, and presently my eldest is 23, my middle daughter is 19, and my son is 15. So, back then they were small, and it wasn't easy to be a full-time entrepreneur while being a full-time single mom. And I didn't want them to feel like everything that I was doing was sacrificing them, but I wanted them to see the sacrifices I was making for them. So I would include them in a lot of things. My kids came with me to book signings. They came with me to events to set up and, help me set up with books and things. Even before I transitioned into personal development, when I was selling real estate, there were many times I brought them to open houses or to show, showings with houses. So they were included in things. And now that they're older, I mean, my eldest will do a lot of things that help with the brand in terms, like, she's very, very creative. So she's like my personal photographer. So she does a lot of, things for the brand there. My middle daughter, who is currently, a huge social influencer. I think she's almost hit 1 million on TikTok, and I don't know, I've lost count, like 800,000 on Twitter. Instagram. But she educates me on how to use social media so that I'm using it effectively for my brand. My son is very open and honest, so he'll give me feedback on things that I'm posting or things that I probably shouldn't be posting. The honest feedback where only the people in your house will give to you. So I still include them in a lot of things. So it's been a beautiful journey. It's definitely been a challenge, but it's a beautiful journey.
Now, obviously, the last thing that you kind of hit on there was the challenges, and I'm sure it hasn't been smooth sailing. Obviously, it hasn't been smooth sailing throughout the whole process. So I'd ask you kind of a weird question, and I just, ask that you entertain this one with me. Do you have a favorite failure? And I mean by that, is there something that was a setback for you that, you were able to grow from or able to learn from, that you can kind of, probably in the moment it was difficult, but now when you look back at it, you realize that it was necessary?
My divorce.
That came really quick.
It came quick because of the way in which you asked the question, because sometimes when I'm having conversations with other people and we're talking about divorce or breakup or things like that, they're like, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. And it's like, I'm not, because there are things that I had to learn as a person. There were things that it taught me about myself. And I believe that nothing is necessarily bad unless we say it's bad. Like, there's good in all things and there's bad in all things. So although the divorce was very stressful and it was not an easy process, in terms of personal development, it developed me as a person to learn patience. It developed me as a person to learn about expectations. It developed me as a person to learn about what I can handle in terms of handle, with being a parent, handle with, managing, balancing entrepreneurship and parenthood while going through a divorce. It showed me so many things. And I have to say, there was even a point before the divorce was finalized where I had to come to a place where I realized even the energy that I was putting out there, because I was very emotional and I got to a point where I was feeling like bitter and resentful and all these negative emotions. And I had to switch my perspective on the whole experience. And when I started to genuinely wish my ex-husband well and want him to find happiness with someone and want him to grow as a person himself, that's when the energy around me started to shift. That's when I started to do better within my business. That's when my health started to improve, my friendships and relationships, because I wasn't coming from that low vibrational energy. It was genuinely wanting to not live in my present circumstance and genuinely wanting the best for everyone around me, and realizing that even though my relationship with him did not work out, he is still the father of my child, and we still have to learn to coexist for many years after this. And if I want this to be a process that isn't hurting everyone involved, then there were some things that I had to learn about myself and be able to, and I don't want to say sacrifice in a sense of, laying down and taking it, but not everything is worth an argument. Not everything is worth the stress. I think that when I understood that he is just a different person, we function differently. We came from different perspectives, different backgrounds, different beliefs, different faiths. It's like the more that I understood and was patient enough to try and coexist with him, the easier it was for me to understand and coexist with other people out in the world.
I like that. And I think it's looking at it's all point of view, right?
Absolutely.
So you've written 4 books. I would love to focus on your gratitude journal.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know offhand, so I'll have to ask, when did that book come out?
So I believe the gratitude journal was published in 2017.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you, what is your definition of gratitude?
How do I say this? I feel like when we are thankful, when we show appreciation and a return of kindness for the people around us and the things that we have, we can express gratitude.
So what led you to writing this book?
So the gratitude journal was my 3rd book. So the first book was me sharing my story. My second book was inspired by the community of people that reached out after the first book, letting me know, like, wow, your story was so inspiring. How are you still able to be so positive? And that was really a compilation of like the affirmations and declarations that I used to get through what I was going through. And then because of my mentor, Bob Proctor, and the importance of practicing gratitude that he has instilled in me, I created a gratitude journal because I was essentially practicing gratitude actively on my own, like in a notebook. But because of the importance and how I felt it was making me feel and the benefits that it was having in my life, I created a gratitude journal that's prompted so that other people could understand the importance of practicing gratitude and how they can use that to maintain a healthier life through mind, body, and soul, and to make it easy for them, because it's essentially, something that can take you 5 minutes a day. It's simple, but it can have such a huge impact on your life.
And I think it's one thing to say what we're grateful for. To be honest, I don't practice writing it out, but I can definitely see the benefits of having these things written out, right? Because in those times, the low times, I would be able to go back to that and look and pull out, okay, this is what I was thankful for, grateful for, right? So I can see that.
Well, there's a huge, and in science and research shows that when we actually write things down manually by hand, like not, type them into a digital device, that it can have a huge impact on our brains. And through everything that I've studied, understanding mindset, when you write things down, it causes you to think. And when you're thinking, it causes you to feel. And when you're feeling, that causes that emotional reaction, causes you to take some type of action. And that action is where our results come from. That action that is like that's where things happen. So it's important for us to realize the importance of actually writing things down by hand.
Now, I want to kind of make a transition here because you talked about the first 3 books. Can we talk about the 4th?
Sure, why not? So, interesting enough, the 4th book is a couples gratitude journal. And that book was inspired by the relationship that I was in at the time. So the partner that I was with saw me writing every single day in my gratitude journal. And they saw how I was basically religiously every morning, writing things down. And I was making it a part of my morning routine. And one day he said, "Have you ever thought about creating a couples version?" And I said, "No." And he suggested that I do so. And within a matter of a month, I put together a couples version to come out in time for Valentine's that year. And basically, it's a gratitude journal that you use with your partner. So on one side is for one person, on the other side of the page is for the other. And you're not only writing what you're grateful for the day, but you're writing what you're grateful for about your partner. Because oftentimes when you're in a relationship, things can get monotonous and you're in a routine, and sometimes you forget to make time for each other. So it's literally making sure that you're on the same page. There are at the end of, I believe it's at the end of every week or month, where it's like an evaluation of the relationship, things that you feel that you may be able to improve on, things that you are good with. There's sections in there to leave a note for your partner, just something kind or sweet, or a reminder of something, maybe an appointment or a date night that week. Or so it's really a place for you to share and document the greatness of your relationship.
Nice. And actually, to go with that, you write about affirmations, and the one that I saw that stuck out to me: "I am rich in relationships and love."
That is my favorite affirmation. Yeah, I believe when it comes to, we talk about as a society wealth a lot, and most people automatically think about financial wealth when you talk about wealth. But I believe that it's important to be wealthy in all areas of your life. And we don't realize how important our relationships are to our financial wealth, to our spiritual wealth, our emotional wealth. So being wealthy in relationships and love allows you to function from a high vibration. It allows you to function from a place of love, but then you feel better about yourself and everything around you. When we're happy, it shows. If you ask someone how they're doing and they're really happy and really excited, their response isn't going to be, "Yeah, I'm good." Like, that's a low vibration response, right? So if you feel good in all of your relationships, and you are rich and in love, and know that the relationships that you have around you are helping you to thrive, and you're helping them to thrive. When someone is like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, "I'm good. Like, I am fantastic." You know what I mean? You function from a different type of energy.
Now, I kind of want to take a trip down memory lane. And if you can think back to when you found yourself as I guess as a newly single mom, because I'm sure there's people listening to us who are in that same boat. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you have given to yourself in that situation?
I would have definitely said, just keep going. They may not understand, but you'll show them. When I became a new single mom, I had just come from a place of being a stay-at-home mom for 4.5 years. And I was in a relationship where my ex-husband was the primary breadwinner, and he had multiple streams of income, and his main job, he was making, over 6 figures. So we lived a very comfortable lifestyle, regular travels, multiple cars, properties, you name it. And when I left, when I decided that I had had enough, everyone around me thought I was crazy. Nobody understood. They looked from the outside and said, you were walking away from financial stability. You were walking away from what they believed was a good life. You were walking away from, they looked at the material things. And I was looking at my sanity. I was looking at my spirituality, and I was looking at what I wanted my kids to see, because that's going to shape their view of relationships for the rest of their life. And staying in a relationship where I was constantly verbally, emotionally, psychologically abused until the day he put his hands on me, that would have set a completely different example to them. And most people were trying to encourage me to get a 9-to-5 when I, decided to file for a divorce. Like, you have 3 kids, you have a mortgage, you have a dog, you have a car payment. What are you doing? And that was probably where I learned to fully, and when I say fully, I mean fully trust in God, because nothing around me made sense. And rather than look at my current situation and what I'm going to say what my 5 senses saw, what I could see, hear, smell, touch, and taste, I tapped into my relationship with God and looked at the vision that he had for my life. And I was like, no, he has a greater plan for me. And I leaned on that. I jumped without the parachute and learned how to fly on the way down. I mean, I don't recommend that to everyone, but it definitely helped me develop my faith and my level of resilience, because every time I thought, this is it, I'm done, God was like, no, I got you. So I feel like in terms of strength and development, that, like I said, that divorce taught me a lot. So becoming a single mom and not allowing my present circumstances to define what my future was going to be. And when I did that, I mean, I had just started in real estate. I hadn't even finalized my license at the time. And the struggle, I tell you the struggle, for the first 8 months where I tried to develop my career as an entrepreneur in real estate, the first 8 months, most people, I believe, probably would have given up. I woke up every day, and although I was still going through the divorce, and it was very, very challenging and toxic, to say the least, but while I was going through that, still getting up every day, getting the kids off to school, going into the office, trying to find leads, offering to do open houses for experienced agents, doing all of the research and education that I possibly could, and coming home at the end of the day and feeding the kids to the point where I would make sure that they ate and I wasn't eating. There were so many sacrifices that were made, but after the first 8 months, it was almost like God said, okay, you've put in the work. You've proved that you want this. I got you. And the taps opened up. And when I tell you, the last 4 months of that year, I sold more real estate than the average realtor sells in all 12 months. And I started hitting award levels, and I started getting opportunities in the media, and I started, I'm going to say, helping other people who never thought it was possible for them to purchase homes, to get into real estate and make those, the largest financial decision that they've ever made in their life. But it was a complete turnaround from the life that I had been living just a few months before. And I think it was the second year I was in real estate when my sister passed away. And, the dealing with the devastation and grief of that, I literally put my business on hold for 6 months and then had to start back over again. So it was definitely an emotional roller coaster. So I know that there's a lot of women that have, become a single mom, and I'm going to say, use that as an excuse per se of why they can't do certain things. And yes, everyone is different. Everyone's experience is different. Everyone's background is different. Everyone's resources and abilities are different. But I also believe that if you want something and you're committed to getting it, you will do whatever it takes. If you are interested in a thing, you will make all the excuses in the world when things get hard. So it's just taking a look at what you want for your life and not looking at the current circumstance. Set that vision for your life. Like, visioneering exercises are so important.
So resilience truly is your superpower.
Resilience is my superpower. And I did not understand that until about a year ago. I was told by people over and over again how resilient they believed that I was, but I didn't believe that for myself until a year ago, where I had to actually look at everything that I have been through, everything that I have overcome, every obstacle that God has walked me through, and been like, wow, I am still here. I am still sane. My children are still healthy. I still have a roof over my head. I am still making an impact. Wow, I'm resilient.
What you reminded me of there is it's actually from a John Maxwell book, and I don't remember which one it was, but he talks about being a pastor early on and just having struggles and not really having the faith in himself and wanting to give up. And one of his mentors said to him, basically, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but if you don't have the faith in yourself, borrow some of mine.
Yes.
It's kind of the same thing that you alluded to there. You had to really lean on what people were saying. People were telling you were resilient, but you didn't believe it yourself until, you finally were able to transition into that space where you did.
Absolutely. 1000%. I can give you a quick story where, after I thought I had worked through, the grief of my sister passing away and everything else happening, even when I transitioned from real estate into personal development, there was a point where I was mentoring others and I was, certified by one of my other mentors in terms of helping people, deal with their mindset. But when I was approached to be a Procter & Gallagher consultant, I was on the phone with one of their number one sales reps. And he was trying to convince me that, I already have what they believe, what it took to be one of their consultants. But I was going through, I'm going to say, a severe depression at the time. I was dealing with, a breakup from the relationship after the divorce. And I felt like I was struggling in all areas of my life. And when he was telling me that I could do this, and I was like, I can't afford what the certification. I'm not in the right headspace. I'm not feeling well physically. I'm dealing with health challenges. I gave every excuse under the sun. And when I explained to him that, I had already written my book, Bob's wife, Linda, had wrote the foreword for it. We had this conversation, and he said, okay, I'm going to call you right back. And he called Bob Proctor, had a conversation with him, and called me back within, 30 minutes. And he said, I just had a conversation with Bob. And he honestly believes that you can do this. He believes in you. He believes in your potential to be able to help others. And I literally had to borrow his confidence in me in that moment. And that's when I made the decision to take the course, even when I couldn't afford it. But because I made the decision, the resources that I needed came to me. And here we are today.
I love that story.
Thank you.
So as we wrap up, Makini, can you tell us what's on the horizon for you? What do you have upcoming? What can we watch for?
I find that's a very interesting question. Sometimes we announce things prematurely, and then it's either those things don't come to fruition, or, the wrong type of energy connects to it, and then it doesn't happen. So I've learned now, when people ask me that question, what's next for me? Leveling up from where I am now. I want to continue to help others to heal. I want to continue to help others to own their stories and use them to create impactful brands in any way that I possibly can.
To all you legacy leavers out there, until next time, subscribe on all platforms, and don't forget to rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcast. And I truly want to thank all of you who have made the show rank in the top 1.5% most popular shows out of over 2 million podcasts. Feel free to join the community of legacy leavers and sign up for our weekly newsletter at awalkinmystilettos.com, and you can receive a free trial copy of the Gratitude Journal. Be sure to grab a copy of all my other personal development books available online everywhere. And if you could think of one person that will receive value from hearing my testimony today, please share it with them. Feel free to screenshot this week's episode, and you can tag myself at The Real Makini Smith, and you can tag Tonya and Brine at disrupt_the_everyday. Continue to walk in greatness in your stilettos in a manner worthy of your calling.